Today's guest is someone who's been sitting right at the beating heart of growth and marketing inside Empire One. Mark Thurman is the head of growth for Amplify, a performance-based digital marketing agency co-founded obviously by Nick Bell and Aaron Sodi. Now, if you've been running a business from 1 to 30 staff and doing between 1 to 5 million in revenue, marketing is one of those areas that either accelerates your business or unfortunately bleeds you dry. Here's why you should care about today. Mark has spent years in the trenches of digital marketing and SEO, helping businesses just like yours get results without the smoke and mirrors that often plague this type of industry. He's passionate about putting members' interests first, cutting through the noise, and delivering outcomes that actually move the needle. And here's the hook. Mark wasn't always in the agency world. In fact, right before COVID, he was on the brink of starting a mezcal business. Now that pivot puts his deep ties with some of the biggest names in marketing, shaping the way he thinks, his risk, growth, and his experimentation. So today, we're gonna unpack the myths all about digital marketing, the future and turning points that's taught Mark, the hard lessons and the practical playbook you can use right now to help grow your business. So stick around, because this conversation could save you thousands in wasted ad spend and give you a roadmap to scale smarter and faster.
Hey, before we dive in, if you haven't already, please hit that follow and like and subscribe button on the Empire One podcast. Every follow helps us reach more people, brings even more incredible guests, and helps us share the lessons that help you build your own empire. Now let's get started.
Welcome, Mark, to Empire One podcast. We're super excited to have you here.
Thank you.
And to talk all things marketing with you. So Mark, obviously been head of growth for Empire Amplify. And what we maybe do to kick things off is, before marketing over COVID, you almost set up a tequila business.
Yep, that's correct.
Let's kick off with talking about some alcohol.
Something random. In hindsight, who knows? I could have been a billionaire selling my tequila brand.
So Zavok didn't buy your tequila business?
He did not. Oh no. He built his own crappy tequila business. Well, so if you're wondering if you want any recommendations, don't buy his tequila. No, I've always for many years, I've been a huge mezcal and tequila fan. For those of you who don't know what mezcal is, it's the way to look at it is mezcal is wine, and then tequila is like champagne. It's part of the larger category. Mm-hmm. And I was huge into mezcal, and then started delving more and more into tequila. And this was, 2019. Went to Mexico a couple of times, to Oaxaca, which is like the heart of mezcal.
Kind of originated?
It can only be made, first of all, it's a denomination of origin, like port, like champagne.
Champagne can only be from the Champagne region of France?
Correct.
Okay.
Tequila and mezcal can only be made in Mexico and only in a number of states.
Okay.
Oaxaca's like the heart of mezcal. There's a lot of there's I think 7 other states where you can actually make it. But I went there and I just fell in love with the whole culture around it. It's all small batch. It's these small families who make it. And just the romance, everything was just beautiful, and it tastes divine. If you get a good mezcal, it is beautiful.
It's quite hard it's small batches because it takes a while to grow, or?
Yeah, so that's the other thing as well, is, wine, grapes, every single year, you just get your harvest, you crush it, you eat juices, you let it ferment, you then distill. Very, very easy. Tequila is probably the easiest one. Takes between 7 to 9 years for an agave plant to reach maturity.
Wow.
So it just needs to sit for 7 years in the ground before you can even take it out. Mezcals, some of the mezcal varieties, some of the agave varieties can take up to 20 years, 15 to 20 years to mature. Also, they can't be cultivated, so they're only found in the wild.
Wow.
So the farmers literally have to go through the Sierras and pick them. Literally, it's that romantic, on donkeys, put them on the sides, carrying them back down to the...
So there's no fosses?
No. For some of them, they can farm. Like the more commercial ones, I could tell you all the names, Espadins, Tobalaz, those kind of things.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, a lot of them are wild. So this is,
wow.
It just adds to, there's so much, like people know this much about the category And
But obviously now some celebrities are jumping into that space, and now people are, I suppose, starting
so this is what I mean by if I'd have, and COVID got in the way, but I had a bottler, I had the actual palenque, so the people who produce it. I was working on labels, I was working on the paperwork, and then just COVID hit and I was stuck. Back then I was living in Indonesia, so sort of got bogged down, and then COVID really hit, and then my wife, who's Australian, was like, let's just go home for a bit, and been here ever since.
Because I'd imagine, being a marketing specialist, that if you did start your own mezcal brand label, you'd be able to smash it, right?
Market, my biggest passion there is, basically. Yeah. I would have had a field day.
So going to that, how did you get into marketing?
I studied international marketing.
Okay.
And then I was always my sort of in my younger years, I was in the hospitality industry. So hotels, I used to work for hotel groups, so sort of head office in the marketing and creative department. So a lot of the graphic design, web development, that side of the business. And I just found that I was gradually gravitating towards the marketing side more, just because I like telling a story, which is, in essence what marketing is all about. Right.
So going from hospitality into then more agency, how did that transition sort of happen for you?
I found that when I left, so I left Indonesia, like I said, during COVID. So I came to Australia and I was working as a consultant. I had a number of clients in Singapore and still in Indonesia and a couple in Australia. And I really liked it. But I found that it was a bit lonely because it was COVID, working from home. The colleagues I had were, in another country, and it was just really, Slack and Zoom calls and that kind of stuff. So I really thought, let's see if I can get back into sort of the agency world. And then one thing led to another, and I got back in. And I've always just loved the fast-paced nature of it, because you're not dealing, when you're client side, you're just dealing with one brand, that's also a lot of fun, because you can really, really deep dive into that brand. You know everything about it. You can really sort of live and breathe it. But I've also always loved kind of working on different projects, and that's what's so nice about an agency.
Because I suppose marketing, been working it for the last 15, 20 years, right? That has taken, I suppose, of any industry, taken some humongous steps because it's so technology driven. And there's been such dramatical, exponential sort of graph in terms of what technology's done. And marketing has sort of gone along with that, with, Facebook being launched and people being able to do all these advertising in mediums that they never used to do. I worked for, I think when I first graduated, a real estate company, and they used to advertise properties in the newspaper.
Yeah.
And there was email wasn't really a thing, and people would come into your real estate agent, be like, "Oh, what properties do you have? Can we look through your book and your list?" And for that, and that wasn't that long ago.
No,
I'm not that old. Like, it wasn't that long ago. So, in terms of marketing and how have you managed to keep up with it? Like, how do people keep up? So there's so many things that are happening, especially now, right? That there's something new. There's a new app. There's a new marketing channel. There's a new thing that you can do to try and get more leads, and everybody's trying to sell you something that's going to get you a quick win. How do you keep up with all that stuff?
Yeah. It's funny to say. I'm waiting for the big buzzword to hasn't been dropped yet. Well, I'm sure we'll get that. Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about AI in a minute. Yeah. But you're absolutely right. The exponential growth. I do feel that every single year it's increasing. And one of the things that I tell a lot of my teammates and stuff as well is and a lot of our clients is, if you look at what was best practice 6 months ago, it is not quite completely obsolete, but it's no longer the most effective way of going about things. You name the channel, doesn't matter which channel we're talking about. Meta advertising, as an example, what was best practice 6 months ago is completely different to what it is now. It's changing that fast. But what I do think is really interesting, I can't remember which magazine it was. I think it was The Economist had an article just a few months ago about, and they compared marketers to cockroaches, and in a more positive way than the.
Is it can't kill them?
Well, no, it was
they can live through. I think they can do a
nuclear explosion, exactly. But it was a bit clickbaity, but it actually
But you quite
the premise. No, I did because I loved it, and the premise was that, you know, in the times before radio, you know, the radio came along and they were like, oh, that's the end of newspapers, but it never happened. They stayed. You know, then the internet came, the big internet in the 90s, and it was like, well, you know, first, of course, everybody was like, the internet's stupid, you know, what are you going to, you know, listen to? No one understood the concept. And now, of course, we can't think of life without it. We'll get to AI in a second because that's where we're going with this as well. But with each new medium, times are changing and focuses are changing, but those old mediums are also still there. So, you know, TV advertising is still big. Radio advertising is still big. Newspaper is still big. Digital is big. It's just adding extra mediums. The one thing that I so agree with you is just the change that's taking place, and you can no longer just rest on your laurels. You have to be on top of it on a month-to-month basis because new technologies are being developed.
How do you do that? How do you keep up with the rapidly changing softwares, tech? I mean, I suppose marketing as a whole, you're right, as you said before, it's a story, right? You're trying to tell someone's story to an audience that needs, so it's, you know, it's a need and wants kind of thing. But how do you keep up with those rapidly changing algorithms, stories, information, where people are going? How do you keep up with all that stuff?
It kind of goes in hand with the increase in development.
Yeah.
What we find is that, you know, back in the day, you really had to read articles. Now, because everything's so much more online, if you follow the right channels, be it certain blogs, the platforms themselves come up with big updates. There was a huge one on Meta just recently, and anybody who's in the industry, it's the talk of the town, right? It's, you know, it's incremental attribution. It's you know, how things are tracked, and everybody was just chattering about incremental attribution. Oh, blah 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 blah. So, because the world is now much more interconnected, it's also much easier to just find out. All right, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. And if you have a good team, everybody has their own niches and their own specialties. You're chatting about it. You're talking about it because you're all in the same industry. So it's like, have you heard about this? And then everybody's experimenting. That's of course what you have to do now as well. Is the technology, the new technology is there, but how do you actually use it to your advantage? So the only way to do that is to A/B test, because you know, all right, this algorithmic change has taken place. What does that mean in practice?
Yeah,
and it's one way to find out.
I mean, sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, like, so with all those technologies, like, it's really hard for a business owner to like get confused. What are some of the big things that like business owners fall for in terms of myths when they're sort of thinking about marketing?
I'd say that they think they need to do everything. It just completely depends on the business, right? You have small mom and pop shops that have a very limited budget. You have to take the budget into consideration. In an ideal world, you want a multi-channel approach, as we call it. You want to be working on your long-term foundational SEO. You want to be working on your brand awareness, brand building exercises through social media, Meta, TikTok, you know, etc. And then you want to have more specific targeting through Google Ads, right? And then there's a whole range of other things that you can also be working on, right? You know, sky's the limit. But that's not realistic for all businesses, right? If you're a big multinational billion-dollar company, you 100% will have all of those, you know, going at full speed. If you're a smaller business and you need to decide, okay, my marketing budget is limited, you're much better off focusing the majority of your budget on one channel that is most in line with what you need than spreading it too thin across everything. Because if you spread it too thin across everything, you're just not going to get any returns.
Can you give a practical example maybe of an industry or a type of business and what channel they might go for?
Yeah. So a great example, and this is also how I always talk to clients about this, is if you have a product and there's a lot of what we call search intent, so people are searching for your product, then Google Ads typically is a really good option, because if a person types that in Google, they are looking for what you have to offer. Whereas if you have a product that is actually, it's novel, it's new, there is no search intent because people don't really know what it is, then you're much better off using social media, because social media targets people who aren't specifically searching for what you have to offer.
It just comes up.
It just shows up based on their interest, based on their psychographic data points, as we call it. One of the things, I'm sure we'll talk about that more in down the line, the algorithms now have become so incredibly intelligent, right? So Meta as a perfect example. A good media buyer is someone who advertises on Meta or on different channels. A good media buyer will not have nearly as many insights and as much knowledge on who the target audience is as Meta's algorithm. It's a $1 trillion business. The amount of sort of AI, the amount of information that it has at its disposal just overshadows any human. Doesn't matter how good of an expert you are at Meta. So where a social media specialist will show his or her strengths is not in, I want to target people between 24 and 34 years old who gender female with an interest in makeup or whatever it is. It is what we call account integrity. So you want to set up your accounts so that the algorithm can best figure out who your audience is for you. Things like you want to have what we call a cold prospecting campaign, right? So that's cold prospecting, no real, very, very broad targeting. Then you have warm targeting, right? Which is people who have shown a little bit of interest, but or through their behaviors would typically be your target market.
As if people are kind of slowly stopping and looking at your ad or
those are the engagers.
Sort of engagers, yeah.
Exactly. And then, it's, we call it a full funneled approach, right? So your top of funnel is that very, very cold. Middle of funnel is already, you're starting to attract a bit more attention. The other thing is as well, you will virtually never get a one-click conversion, a conversion being, a sale or a lead, right? People need to see your brand, need to see your business a number of times before they convert. So there's a whole art in kind of mold in the way that you communicate, the way that you tell this brand story to your audience in order to get your desired outcome.
Is that something that you have to educate clients on, that it takes time, they have to see you multiple times, they need to start building that trust and recognizing you, rather than as soon as that ad goes up, you're going to start getting sales and clicks and people coming to your website?
And I usually, the best way to do is just to turn it around. I always do. I say, how often have you searched something, pens, whatever it is, and then for the next 2 weeks, you're seeing all these pen ads.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to click on that first pen ad? No, but you kind of look at it and you get your interest gets piqued. There's something else called the breakdown effect, which is it's another. This is what I mean. There's just so many levels to this, right? People lose interest after seeing an ad twice, right? So if you have one ad and you show that ad to people 4 times, after the first 2, their recall, as we call it, will be virtually 0. It's like completely gone.
It's invisible to them.
Sorry?
It's invisible to
them. Exactly. It just becomes, it's like almost in their subconscious. They just don't remember it. Whereas if you have very, very similar ads, but with a slight different hook, slight different angle, exactly the same message or virtually the same message, same brand, obviously, same, you are selling the same product, but the actual visual and the way that you communicate this ad is slightly different, you pique their interest again. So these are these tips and tricks you can use to actually get them to pay attention and to do your design.
I mean, there's been a lot of, I suppose, report and data on people's attention spans as well, because I think so many, reels are relatively new in terms of technology, right? So, Facebook first came out, they didn't have reels, and then TikTok came out, and now everybody's tried to copy them. But scrolling through that, I mean, people's now attention span is literally what I used to be. I think they used to say like 3 seconds, and now it's dropped to like half a second.
Yeah.
So you've got half a second to grab someone's attention.
Yeah.
So that first hook has to be incredible, right? To grab their attention in half a second, you're scrolling through and seeing all these stupid cat videos or whatever else is on it.
Stupid.
No, but it's absolutely true.
You've got
Absolutely
so little amount of time to grab their attention that it has to be, and I think that probably comes back to the story when we were talking about before. Your story and hook has to be so good, you don't necessarily have to have the best product or the best service. It's actually about the hook.
Yep. Absolutely. I could not agree more.
So how do you structure those hooks to make sure that people are getting the attention?
Yeah. So, firstly, yeah, you could not be more right. Like attention spans have been dropping precipitously over the last few years, and especially with the advent, like you said, of Reels, of TikTok, of everything. It's scary how little time you now have.
Well, and now the algorithm feeds you more of the stuff you stick on for a second as well.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. So no, it's getting into dangerous territory, and what we find is that, and this also goes back to kind of conformity, and we'll discuss this more shortly. Meta by the end of 2026 will be completely automated, right? So AI will take care of A to Z. So you literally don't even have to do anything. You need a product shot, and you click a button, and your ad will be done.
I mean, we're almost getting there already. We were talking about recently Nano Banana that's just been come out, right?
Yeah.
So you can put any image you want on there. You can have a product shot of any of your products, which is an incredible tool, and say, I want my product to, a gorilla to be holding it in the center of Melbourne, and it will create a product shot with, a person or a famous person, which is kind of scary that now you don't really need that amazing graphic designer to chop out all of your stuff.
But this goes back
for you.
Yeah, but this goes back to that, marketing and cockroach kind of, you'll never kill it off, because what we're creating is just the new conformity. So right now it's all novel, but soon every single ad will be a gorilla holding the product in the center of Melbourne. So what sets you apart from the rest? And that's still where the human, because if it's AI, you ask AI, you ask a large language model to come up with a novel concept, In the end, it is still something AI generated. So they'll come up with this concept where you can really think out of the box. You still need humans for that. And so this goes exactly back to what I was saying, where you can actually show a difference, is the creative. So not only campaign structure, but it's also in the creatives, how getting a graphic designer or an AI to actually create the creatives, that's fine, but it's the ideas behind it. And I think we're many years away from the AI taking that over from humans.
Because you want, I suppose there's lots of people that have come in that are disruptors to the market in terms of the design they've taken or the weird skew they've put on a product that makes somebody like, oh, that's cool. And then it stops you, right? So that's what they want. They stop you and want you to click.
Yeah.
And I suppose that takes it to, like, with small business, only being able to have limited budgets and only being able to do limited things. So you were talking about before, huge conglomerates can spend millions of dollars on multiple different channels of things. If you are a smaller business, where would you say that they should be focusing? Because there's quite a lot, because I think a lot of people get confused with the fact that there's so many mediums now, and you've got, okay, should I be doing some Facebook and Meta advertising, which goes on, Facebook and Instagram? Should I be doing Google advertising? Should I be doing SEO, which I think nobody really has any idea what SEO really is, because they can't put a real return on investment on it, or they don't really understand what it does.
I'd agree. It's the most ununderstood.
And then you've got, which we've not really talked about AI yet, but then you've got the SEO, LLM search. How do you get your website and your brand and your product into ChatGPT and Gemini, so that when someone is now searching, which people are now doing
more and more,
billions, because Google is probably going to die. Don't know. You've probably got an opinion about that. But they're now searching in these LLMs to find a product or a service, and people are like, okay, how do I get my business and product and service to appear in ChatGPT? I'd love that, but nobody really is talking about it. Really, You know, there's not a lot of information out there about actually in the marketing function, because I think a lot of agencies are sticking to the, well, this is what we know and have done and is tested. We're going to continue down that model. So what do they do? What do small businesses do? There's so many different things they can do, and I've only got a limited budget, and I only, I want to get my product or my service out there. What would I do?
Yeah, great question. I'll compartmentalize that a couple answers to that.
It was only like 10 questions.
Yeah, wait, listen, so to start with,
that's marketing though, is it not? Is it not marketing?
Yeah, fair. I'll start with what they're best off doing. So I think that especially the new generation, the generation that's taken off, God knows what it is, Gen X, the new decision makers, right? Millennials are already kind of the old ones, and now it's the next generation. I always say, look, most people when they come across your brand, wherever it is, most people will go to social media, right? Older generations, not so much maybe, but the new generation that is taking over.
They're not going to be looking up a website. They're going to be searching
on
social media.
But the first encounter is almost always will be on social media. Very often.
Find your ad.
Yeah. They'll see something and they'll go, let's just have a quick look on Instagram, and they'll have the grid, they'll have look at a few photos. Yeah, it looks legit, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a product, whether, whatever it is. Even service-based, right? It'll give them a quick overview as opposed to your traditional website where they have to go about us, categories, So
then they're making a judgment based on your product,
your digital calling card, which is what I call it.
On what you've got on your Instagram account.
Yeah, and so that's what I call it. It's your digital calling card. It's just, and that's what I tell businesses is, like, the days are over. This talks, again about sort of how things have evolved. The days are over where hashtags are of any value. Hashtag, outfit of the day or whatever it is. Nobody's looking at hashtags anymore. So what you need to have is a good representation of what your brand is on your socials, because that's just what people are going to see. Maybe a weekly, depending on the brand and the industry, maybe a bit more content. If you're a Pilates business and you want to show, this is what we've been doing this week, or, a couple of different posts is fine. But if you have a very static brand or something, you don't need to post every single day, because the only people who are going to see it, especially if you're small and you only have a few thousand followers, the only people who are going to see it are your following. And even then, it's only a small portion of that following.
Because it's not served to everybody.
Exactly, because that's the way Mark Zuckerberg, when he took over, it became a publicly listed business. He needs to make profit. So now all we care about is ads. So if you're going to do organic posting, we're going to show it to 5% of people, or whatever the percentage is. If you want to reach people outside of your existing, what used to be hashtags, you do your hashtag whatever, now you just have to pay.
So now you're paying to boost, basically.
Exactly, boost or actual off-page ads. So my recommendation is always start with, things that aren't going to cost any money. So organic posting, make sure that you have a good community. Outreach is really good. Email marketing, best option is to get a really nice, well put together strategy, well designed, really nice emails. But if you're, if you want to keep costs down, if you have an existing database, send a what we call a reignition flow to your existing database. If you're a product, right? If you're skincare, that if they've bought 6 months of product, then that, all right, in 6 months' time, I need to send these people an email to say, hey, do you still have any of your product or not? So there's email marketing, and then it really just depends on the industry. If you're direct-to-consumer e-commerce, it's almost always going to be Meta is typically the best channel, with a bit of Google. But again, you have to look at, it's all about cost benefit, right? You have to look at return on investment. How much is your marketing going to cost you? And it's also what I always say, it's an investment. You cannot, in today's world, expect to just turn on your ads and the next day, great, there's $10,000 in my bank account. Yeah. You are building something up that takes a little bit of time, and once it's going at full speed, it's a beautiful medium.
So you both talked about the SEO being confusing and people not really understanding. Can you step through SEO? What people can do to sort of improve their SEO to start with, and then maybe leading it into SEO for AI. And what those changes are, because you know, I think that's really interesting how that evolution is flowing.
Yeah, and I think people just don't understand it.
Yeah.
Like, it's actually a very complex.
Yeah, I had someone a couple of weeks ago refer to it as the dark art of digital marketing. I think that's actually really, really apt. A lot of people, you know, they'll refer to it as SEO,
Leo.
Yeah, I'm not even talking about AI SEO. I've made the analogy a couple of times now of it being like what the internet was in the 90s. People were just, this, you know, is this really the next big thing and stuff? It is the next big thing. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. It is going to completely fundamentally change how we, you know, operate in life. But the cool thing is this is AI, right? But the cool thing is like SEO is like what the internet was. Is we're at this point where we haven't even agreed on a name. So some people are calling it LLMEO, GEO, AEO, so large language.
So the EO is for
engine optimization.
Yep.
So we'll get to that in a second. So maybe I'll start that way.
Yeah.
Search engine optimization, SEO. Very, very simply put in one sentence, is the art of getting your website onto the first page of Google, or at least as high as possible on search engines, to be found for what you want to be found for, right? If you're selling bottles of wine and someone goes, you know, bottle of wine near me, you want to show up at the top. And that's what SEO is. Google has a whole range of parameters and rules that it basically utilizes to determine who it's going to put on that first page of Google. I'm completely oversimplifying everything now because we don't have 5 hours to go into this. Very simply put, EEAT is the acronym EAT. Experience, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. So Google will scan your website. Literally, it will look at the content on your website. What are you talking about? It will look at how well is your website put together. Is it fast loading, right? Google hates a slow website because it gives a bad user experience. Because Google's all about user experience. In the end, Google wants its visitors to keep on visiting it. And so if a person is searching for something on Google and they find exactly what they're looking for as quickly as possible, they'll never want to go elsewhere. So that's Google's kind of vested interest. And as a website, if you follow all of Google's rules to a T as much as possible, you work on that experience, so the user experience on your website, you work on that expertise, trustworthiness, authority piece, you are telling Google, hey, I'm worth putting up to the top of Google. So that's very, very, very simply put.
It's basically a lot of stuff done in the back end of your website is SEO to make sure that you are then appearing at the top of Google.
Correct. Yeah. And so a lot of people, the misconception is a lot of people think that it's a one-off. I just need to fix my website and then I've done my SEO and great, I'm going to be on the first page for, you know, whatever service or product that I have. Not understanding that it's just a constant race because your competition is doing the exact same thing. And the more authority and expertise and trustworthiness they can show to Google, the higher they go. If no one else, if it was completely static, you know, no one's working on SEO and you did a couple of things, boom, you're at the top. That's great. But your direct competitor is doing the same. And your other competitor, everybody is constantly working on it.
Through Victoria Market, Queen Vic Market, and, you know, all the fruit sellers, and it's like everyone's yelling over the top of each other, you know, come on.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. And you know, if you don't shout at the top of your lungs, you're going to you won't be found. And 95% of all traffic will stay on page 1. So if you're on page 2, you're fighting for scraps. You really have nothing. Now, again, we still don't have, nobody can still agree on that's how novel and new AI SEO is. Generative engine optimization, answer engine optimization, large language model, and whatever it is. It is slowly but surely, right now it's still a very small portion. It's only traditional, call it traditional SEO is by far still the dominant search that's taking place. But people more and more are starting to use these large language models, and large language models are Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, Perplexity, all these.
I mean, but even on a Google search, though, they've now got Gemini giving you a result at the top.
Yeah, so those are AI overviews. Slightly different because that's powered off of Gemini's LLM.
Okay.
And because that is part of Google, that's what shows up. So that is...
And they've got links in there as well, though, to the source material.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is why AI SEO is so important. In the end, and this is also a huge misconception, people think that they're two completely separate things. They are anything but. Because large language models, the ChatGPTs of the world, they derive their information from the World Wide Web. They get their information from the internet. So if you are crushing all those fundamentals, your EEAT, and you are doing everything right in Google's standings, you are ranking up high. Where do the large language models, they don't just pick it out of the air. They're looking at the internet to find the best possible answers. Now, there are differences. There are a lot of things that you have to do different for these large language models because of the nature of said models. They are much more a conversational partner, so to speak, as opposed to traditional SEO, which is just question, answer, link, basically. That's it, right? Whereas a large language model will give you a whole answer in a sentence. So if you can reflect that on your website...
So that's having a really detailed Q&A in more conversational chat,
for example,
rather than a direct, this is what I'm looking for, this is the answer.
Yeah. So it is a lot of, there's a huge overlap between traditional SEO and AI SEO.
How if you're going to win in this space then? So if you want to get your small business and making sure that you're doing everything you can to get on LLMs, to make sure that you're getting at the top of Google, is it investing in SEO and making sure that your website has got everything possible, plus, I know we've not talked about it, but blogs, and making sure that your website's an authority with backlinks and those type of things? Is that
exactly that?
That's what you do.
Yeah. So it is very much the fundamentals of SEO, as well as an added element of that sort of more conversational nature. So you are, and the other beauty is, like, don't let anybody tell you that they know exactly what to do, because these things are changing so rapidly, right? And the only way, because the way that Google's algorithm works, it's like, the Big Mac sauce recipe and Coca-Cola's recipe and stuff. It's like there are various departments that don't know what the other, so nobody actually knows exactly what Google's algorithm's all about. So you only know through testing. So agencies will have, quite literally, testing accounts that they will play with, and they'll go, all right, let's change the meta description on this and see what happens. Those kind of things, to see what effect it has. To make things even more complicated, Google has core updates every once in a while, where it just completely changes what it values and what is more important to it in terms of ranking. When this happens, every SEO department in the world, especially Australia here, have an absolute freak out, because it's like, oh my God, what's just happened?
What do we have to change?
Yeah, exactly. And some businesses, like, massive wins overnight. They're all of a sudden they've crept from page 3, they're on page 1 for like these massive high ticket keywords, and other ones who were doing so well for months and months and months, all of a sudden they have this massive dip. So sometimes these core updates, they just shake everything up, and then you have to figure out, okay, and they make announcements, right? One of the biggest ones, going back to AI, was I think it's 6, maybe even 12 months ago. They in the core update, they announced that AI content was now going to be accepted as something that you can positively rank for, right? So that it would actually have a positive effect on your website.
Because they did at one stage say that if you had like a blog that was written and they knew it was by AI, they weren't going to rank it.
Exactly. And now they were. But what happened was, of course, every single bloody agency on the planet was just like, great, so we can do all this. So you're not differentiating yourself anymore. And that's, of course, so even if it does benefit you, if everybody benefits, then suddenly there's no net benefit because it's just the same for everyone. So it's just constant. Everything is moving. Nobody knows what the answer is. You know what the answer is right now, and you are trying to figure out, all right, this new development, how are we going to best play it and feed it so that we get the best possible.
It's kind of the perfect business model for Meta and Google, right? I mean, 90% of ad spends on Meta and Google, and then every time it starts, people think that they know what they need to do. You change up the algorithm, everyone has to spend again and spend more money and like change it. It's like, it's a perfect cycle.
It is a perfect model. So I suppose that's perfectly into what do you think's happening next? So the next, marketing is such a massive thing. We've just talked about that nobody still really understands it. Things are changing daily. Even people that do SEO only understand what's happening today, and tomorrow could be a different kettle of fish, right?
Yep.
So what do you think is going to happen, in your opinion, in the next 2 years, 3 years, as more and more people, and I suppose I've got a bit of an opinion, like as more and more people start to use ChatGPT, I reckon nobody's going to be using Google anymore. And I envision that all of these LLMs are going to start doing advertising, right? I think you can jump on the bandwagon there with the advertising on ChatGPT that you're coming up in a search and it's a sponsored link. You're going to hit gold for the first few months.
Yeah.
But what do you think as a marketer that's been in it for years that's going to happen in the next 12, 18, 2 years?
Yeah, I think you're right. Early adopters are always going to benefit, right? So if that does happen, if ChatGPT or other large language models do, the minute they decide and they say, all right, we're going to allow ads, get on there.
I mean, do you think that will happen?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, they do products now in ChatGPT that link out to pages.
Yeah, but
It's not sponsored.
Yeah, not sponsored. Yeah, that's right. But that's obviously
what we're wondering is,
right. It's like, what do we do? First, we test it, and then we charge for it.
But I literally do that now. I needed new running shoes, and I went online because I also like to experiment and sort of figure it out myself. So I went online, Asics Gel Kayano 32s. Where can I find the best deal? Did that, and I did the exact same search in ChatGPT, and I did it in I think it was Gemini, and ChatGPT found me a deal, which I couldn't find through Google Shopping. So it was really interesting. I was like, okay.
Interesting question. Did you search for the best running shoes on ChatGPT to see if it gave you like the top?
That was,
because I think that's what a lot of people use it for now. Was before people would, and I personally do this all the time. Before you would be like, okay, I'll jump onto Google. What is the best running shoe, or what is the best basketball shoe for this particular thing? And then I'd be like, okay, here's a sponsored one. It's a blog, but they're kind of, maybe they're actually biased. They're probably not, but they're giving their own product first to get some SEO.
Yeah.
But now I kind of feel that ChatGPT is unbiased because it's not trying to sell me a product. So it's actually scouring the internet
for now.
And looking at all the different products. So, I bought a coffee maker last year and I was like, on ChatGPT, what is the best coffee maker for the best price that delivers the best quality coffee?
Yeah.
Right? And it came up with a whole series, and Google has given me different answers because it's all blogs.
All vested interests.
It's all vested interest in brands that are trying to get me to buy their product, and they're just taking me to their page because they're ranking themselves at number one.
Yeah.
So,
and the other thing as well is they're really sophisticated now when it comes to how they advertise. So a lot of these blogs, I was getting into supplements, NMN powder, and I was Googling all these different ones, and I found that a lot of them were just packaged as a health influencer who was trying these 5 different supplements. But then you look carefully and they actually only have links to the one that came out the best. And you have to scroll down so far to get to the other 5, and then there's not even links of it. So this was just a paid ad, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. So they're getting really sophisticated with that. I think, yes. So to answer your question, I did confirm that shoe was
the best shoe.
Yeah, I've done a lot of research, and I was just making sure that ChatGPT was also on the ball, and they agreed that for my wonky feet that those are the best shoes.
So where is it going to go?
So I honestly think that you talk about the difference between Google and LLMs. I think that's kind of going to merge into one. I think we're going to have, I don't know if you guys ever saw the film Her with Joaquin Phoenix, where basically you just have a personal assistant on your phone, and it's a person. I mean, he gets romantically involved with it. I don't think that's going to happen too much, but I really do think that AI is just going to go into the stratosphere, and it's going to become, first of all, a lot more intelligent than us, and I think that everything will become much, much more automated. So then going back to like the marketing industry itself, where do you show, like where do you differentiate yourself as a brand from the rest, is by not following that pure AI sort of model, and actually being original and actually thinking outside of the mold and doing things slightly differently.
So I suppose that's where it comes back to what you were saying, Vina, at the very start of this chat, that when Facebook Meta, it does its whole entire AI algorithm, and you can post an ad with just one shot of something in a year and a half's time, that actually that's not going to be the best model. Yes, it means that anybody will be able to do it themselves, but the reality is that you're just going to look like everybody else. So
exactly. Yeah.
You want an expert to actually get you ways that you don't look generic like every other brand or every other product in your industry.
Exactly.
You need somebody to be thinking outside the box to actually give you a proper story, to give you an ad that actually resonates with somebody, or is completely different that someone's not. Because thinking outside the box and ads that are weird, they're the ones you're going to click on. They're the ones you'll be like, oh, look how cool this ad is, you know?
And that's just the creative. So then we're also talking about targeting and how just everything from A to Z. If you do that just slightly differently, I think that's where you're going to show a lot of or get a lot of wins, gain a lot from just not being as generic, because the competition is just going to increase. Because if everybody can get their hands on a product, because of course the more interconnected Temu, whatever, people are buying products on Temu and then just putting a label on it and selling it in a different country and whopping an extra 300% margin on it. And then if you can also advertise, and you don't even need to do product shoots, you don't need models, you don't need a copywriter, you don't need anybody. You can press a button and a landing page just is done for you.
The cost of acquisition has become a lot easier, right?
Through the roof. Yeah.
All right. So I'm a business owner, small business owner. Next week, what's the one thing that I can do to improve my marketing?
One thing. Get in touch with us. No, it's because it's unfortunately there's not a one.
Matt's booking links in there.
I'm saying, you have to look at. There are a number of things that you can do.
Should I audit my website? Should I look at my material? Should I look at them?
Websites. We talk about conversion rates, right? And a typical conversion rate sits, depending on industry, depending on offering, but let's say between 1% and 3%. So for every 100 people who land on your website, 1% to 3% will either turn into a lead if you're a service-based industry, or will turn into a sale if you're an e-commerce business. If you can, and manipulate in the positive sense of the word, if you can manipulate your website in such a fashion that it's just easier for people to convert. Perfect example. One of the easiest examples to follow is if you see a product that you really like and you want to buy it, and all you have to do is press on the buy with Apple Pay button, and it is literally done for you. That is wonderful. You've almost bought it before you can have a second thought.
No friction.
No friction whatsoever. Whereas if you then have to, please create an account. Create an account. Okay. Fill in your credit card number. I don't have my credit card, because no one carries a wallet on them anymore, So if that friction, if you need more steps in order to convert, you're going to lose a huge amount of people.
And I suppose on that's why companies like Amazon have done so well.
Yep.
I open the Amazon app. I don't even know, like the buyer's remorse isn't even there. I literally look at a product and I just hit buy, and it doesn't even now take you to the page. It says thank you
for your purchase.
Right? It's like I've got zero time to even get remorse, because it's like it's
done.
2 hours later, it's at my house.
I was going to say, it's already at your house before you get the remorse. You're just like, should I bet? Ding dong. Oh yeah, okay, cool.
So essentially, you follow that kind of model.
Yeah. Just make it as easy as possible for people to convert. And again, whatever your desired action is that you want to take, that's what we call a conversion. It all starts with your website. It all starts with your brand image. So if you have a really crappy website, it's worth investing in getting a new website. It doesn't need, and that's what I say, unless you have a very, very complicated, convoluted offering, don't reinvent the wheel, right? I always say to people, is like, I'll ask them, okay, I usually will say when I'm having a conversation with a business owner, it's like, give me like a couple of competitors. I want to know who's your direct competitor, it's always between you and them, as well as who do you aspire to be? And I'll always say, look, you aspire to be that brand, that billion dollar brand, whatever it is. Do you think they came up with the format of their website themselves? They copied it from someone else, and they copied it from someone else. It's that sort of that theme has been tried and tested by multiple marketing departments, through hundreds of thousands of iterations, and they've come to, all right, this formula actually works the best. Use that. And then where you do have to be different is obviously in your messaging and the product itself, right? But in the structure, you don't need to, if anything, people don't like having to, sometimes you'll see a mouse, if you're moving your mouse button and it's almost like fireworks and it moves. That just annoys people. They're just like, I don't know, right? That kind of stuff, uniform, just stick to the rules. Everything else, think outside the box. Have your product be a bit different. Have your marketing be a bit different.
Great advice.
There was actually a very funny thing the other day. They were talking about round buttons versus square buttons. Yeah. Like, this is how adept it is, and that if you've got a round cornered button, you've got a 30% more likely to click than a square button. Who would have thought that? Yeah. And so I suppose that's what it comes down to, a lot of testing as well, because you talked about, they would test A/B testing on lots of things and trying new things out. That's going to help people. That if you've got a website, you need to try some things out, test some things. What works, what doesn't work, what's going to get people to, and you're right, if it's $1 billion business, they've probably spent a lot of money on testing all
so much already. Yep.
Why not
I think it's Picasso who said, good artists create, great artists steal. And then Banksy, I think, just took that exact thing and put it on a wall or something, and it was just signed Picasso. Another is even better. Another.
Awesome.
We've got a quick rapid fire questions for you, Mark. So, what was the book that shaped how you think, or even your favorite book of the last 12 months?
12 months. Oof, that's a tough one.
You've recently had a baby. You're probably not reading much right now.
I'm not reading much. I read almost every single day, but I fall asleep after about a third of a page. So every single time I've been stuck on the same page. I'm reading a book right now that's actually really thin. It's called The Vegetarian by Han Kang. And I've been at page 37 for like a week and a half or something. Recently, I'm trying to think of a recent book that I've read. I'll get back to you on that one. I would say the most beautiful book I've ever read, that I read at least once a year, 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. It's a fiction book. It is an absolute masterpiece, most beautifully written. I unfortunately haven't read it in Spanish, which is originally Spanish. He's a Colombian writer. But yeah, I cannot tell you how much I love that book. Non-fiction, I would say one of my favorites ever is Guns, Germs and Steel by Jared Diamond, which deals with guns, germs and steel. It's one of those really cool, like really thinking outside the box. It deals with the Fertile Crescent, why people in Europe have been, in inverted commas, more successful than people in sub-Saharan Africa. And it deals with, it's because of climate, not because of people, and because they had livestock and they were less susceptible to disease, and so which is why they conquered, which is why people from Europe conquered the rest of the world, the Spanish, the English, etc. Fascinating book. Yeah, I'm a real book nerd, so I could go on for hours. Okay. Tequila and books.
Okay, so guilty pleasure. Is it tequila?
Yeah, tequila, mezcal.
I heard something about. Is there like a mezcal bubble tea?
No, but my Friday bubble tea.
Maybe mezcal tea or boba or mezcal.
No, I'd like to keep those two separate, actually. Bubble tea is absolutely my guilty pleasure. I will have a bubble tea religiously every Friday. I'll get an extra large. It's a 1 liter. It's basically diabetes in a glass.
90% sugar.
It's horribly sweet. It's so good. And I will. I have cancelled meetings.
Yeah.
For your bubble tea. My boss has booked me in for a 12:30, and I've just declined the meeting.
We can cut that bit.
What's your morning ritual?
So wake up to the sound of my 2-year-old screaming "Dada, Dada," getting her ready for daycare. Then I will twice a week. I'll go for a morning run, and then I've gotten into supplements. So I'll take my morning supplements. And then I try to keep off of coffee until about 9.
That's good.
So it's getting the kid ready, getting myself ready, and a run if I'm lucky.
Worst piece of business advice you've ever heard?
This one's a pet peeve of mine. So I'm really big on people. Are we allowed to swear in this?
Depends what the word is.
It's fuck around and find out.
Right.
I believe in setting a really, really solid foundation, and then you fuck around a bit. Then you can sort of try. This is basically A/B testing. Try this. But I've got an idea, and being a bit sort of whimsy about it. No. It's like really put in the hard yards in the beginning, get a solid foundation, then you can sort of have your way.
Yeah, sort of like the quotes of people that say, overnight success with 22 years.
Exactly.
Breaker years to become an overnight success.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There is no such thing as an overnight success, right? That's impossible. Yeah. It's just it's not about
tip of the iceberg.
Now it's become mainstream more. You manage to see one of their ads or
exactly. Yeah.
And last one here. What's the best thing you've outsourced
in life or business?
Whoa. Best thing I've outsourced. That's a really good question. I'll say the best thing I've outsourced, and the thing I should have outsourced.
Yeah.
So taxes. I hate doing my
taxes.
Oh yeah, how much? So a mate of mine just said, go to accountant. I'd never thought about that. I was just like, wait, you can go to accountant? He's like, yeah, it's fine. I was like, okay.
And you can claim that accountants.
I know.
In your tax.
He made me so much more money than I would have. It was like, and I was just like, where has this been all my life? And the other one that kind of very similar, in some similar vein, as you can hear, I'm not originally Australian. My missus is Australian. And so I needed to apply for my de facto visa. At the time we weren't married yet, so it's like a partner visa, but anyway. And it's bloody expensive, right? It costs a lot of money. And then on top of that, you can get an agent to do it. That was another like $2,000-3,000. I was like, I'll do it myself. Worst decision ever. If anybody is thinking about it, it was worth the $2,000-3,000 tenfold.
Right.
The amount of hours I spent late at night finding this, finding that, emails back and forth. It was horrible. So
yeah, I went through that process when I first moved because I've been here now 11 years.
You did it yourself as well?
I did the whole visa application.
Oh,
how to?
Never again.
Never. It was the most painful experience of my life.
I'm going soon. I get my citizenship. I get to apply for that. I'm going straight to. I'm going to use LLMs. I'm going to go check.
I know, but citizenship's actually crazy. I did it like about 3 or 4 years ago. The citizenship part is actually quite easy.
Oh, okay.
So
I do.
You can definitely do that yourself. Yeah. Citizenship part is easy.
Okay.
But that's the bit we got. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure talking to you. I now know a lot more about SEO and LLM search and all the things we need to do in our business and for the website. So thank you. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.